Welcome back, everybody, to Invested Intelligence. Should I buy Bitcoin today, right now, in this moment? Is that the right thing to do? Would it be the right thing to do? Does it make sense for me to be purchasing Bitcoin today? Would it go down if I buy it? Am I going to be positioning myself for a really nice multi-year bull run? These are the questions that investors ask themselves when they're looking at any asset. It doesn't necessarily mean Bitcoin, but we're focused on Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency channel. But I want to really start to think about what that looks like. So if we go over to the Bitcoin chart, we do have the rate announcement coming. We've got some things going on in the banking sector and so on. None of that has changed. But if we just look at the chart and, Bitcoin's currently around about 28,000. If I was to purchase Bitcoin today, what does that look like in terms of downside and what does that look like in terms of upside? How would I be investing? Would I just be buying, and holding from years and years and years down the line? Would I be buying with a stop? If that stop gets hit, I get pulled out of the market. Let's dig a little bit deeper and see what that looks like. So let's make an assumption that we buy right now, right? Perfect. So we've just bought at 28,000. What could happen? What do we expect to happen? And then we can start to feel what that risk reward looks like. Now, obviously, before I continue, think about Bitcoin in two ways. Some people look at it as a store of value. Some people look at it as a, sort of hedge against inflation or a safe haven when things are going wrong in the financial sector, the banking sector, traditional finance. I'm going to look at this from the kind of prospect of a multi-year bull run because I believe in cryptocurrency. And I think over time, I'm going to be positioning myself in a really strong place. So in 2 to 3, maybe 4 or 5 years time, I can look back and say buying Bitcoin at 28,000 actually made a lot of sense. Now, this isn't financial advice. We're going through a practical example to show whether or not, the thinking process that investors go through actually makes sense. We purchase at 28,000. Then we can start to think about what that looks like in terms of downside, right? So if I go all the way down here where I believe at some point Bitcoin could potentially go to around about 10,000 to 12,000, right? If that happens, I'm down 57% on my investment. If I stick $1,000 into Bitcoin today at 28K, I'm going to be down $570 if it gets down to the level that I've noted here, right? Am I prepared to hold through all of that? If that happens, is it going to be a life-changing amount of money for me? Am I putting myself at great risk by losing $570? We're going to go with the premise that we're not, because we are investing with money that we can afford to lose. We're being responsible investors and we're not gambling, and we're just looking to position ourselves in Bitcoin where it actually makes sense. So $570 down if this happens. And that's a big if, because we don't know, right? There are many variables that we can take into consideration. Now, if it did actually happen, then we could basically think about potentially adding to our position down here. Maybe we've got another $500 or another $1,000 that we're prepared to put into the market. Maybe our total portfolio is around about $5,000, and we start to think about how this plays out in terms of math. But maybe we add a little bit around about 12,000. That brings the cost it brings the cost in. So we're roughly around about maybe 17 to 18,000 in terms of our cost, depending on how much we put in. But we're positioning ourselves within this area, assuming we get downside. Now, if we don't get downside and price continues to go up as it has been over the last sort of couple of weeks, okay, what does that look like? So, and that's a pretty aggressive candle. Let me just bring that down a bit because that is way too much. So let's say price does continue, and we are in at 28K. Price is currently at 32, 33. We're happy with our investment. And we start to go for that kind of multi-month run, where price is going up, it's pulling back, it's going up, it's pulling back, maybe we consider adding to our position as price, is going into these hot spots where we're getting something similar to this. Price goes up, pulls back, goes up, pulls back, goes up. It's not as clean as this. Obviously, we know that cryptocurrency can be extremely volatile, but just to kind of outline a basic understanding of, buying the dips. We've all heard this before. You're buying these pullbacks as prices continue into the upside. Now, any investment that you get into will always be risky. It doesn't matter what you're doing, but we're trying to control that risk by being clinical in the way that we're engaging with the markets. So for me, if I was to buy Bitcoin today at 28K, whether or not that works for me over the long term, it requires two key elements. Number one, I have to believe in Bitcoin. And number two, how do I add to my position, if at all, Yeah. And depending on how I add to my position will depend on whether that position is a positive expectation or a negative expectation, because we can clearly add to our positions. As a quick side note, we grab at 28, we add at 27, we add at 26.5, we add at 26. That's never going to work because you're way too close to your current price and you're literally just buying for the sake of buying, as opposed to clinically looking at where there are key elements or key moments in the chart where you could be waiting for. And as price is approaching these levels, then you start to think about, do I need to be adding? Should I be waiting? Do I need to see an impulse? Do I need to see money coming back into the market? And as we put all of these together, it gives us a much clearer sort of investment plan as we go forward with cryptocurrency, in the coming years. So I wanted to kind of give some practical ideas on, at least how to look at Bitcoin, while it's showing a little bit of strength at the moment, but to also caution that while everything looks okay now, when you have a solid plan and you're really focused on implementing that plan as clinically as you can, it can put you on the right side of the market even when things are going wrong. So with all of that said, I hope everyone's having an absolutely fantastic day or evening wherever you are in the world, and I look forward to speaking to you very, very soon. All the best. Take care. Ciao for now.